Hi, Dal from Select Driving School here. Today I want to talk to you about how I will teach you to drive, how I will take you from potentially a complete novice to a competent and confident driver with a pass certificate to prove it. I'm going to talk to you about the 3 steps to learning to drive, the 3 Fs as I call them. The foundations, the fundamentals, and finally focus. The video gives you a good idea of what to expect when you start your driving lessons with me, and also gives you the opportunity to give yourself a good idea as to exactly what's involved in learning to drive, what all the key skills are, and what all the important sort of questions you'll need to be asking yourself and answering in order for you to be able to take your place alongside other road users. If you like the video, please click like. If you want to ask me any questions, you can follow me on Twitter at DarrellA1965, or go to my website or my Facebook page or my YouTube channel. The 3 Fs of learning to drive: foundations, fundamentals, and finally focus. You can think of these as a bit like a traffic light system. When you're just at the foundation steps, you're on red, so you're still not ready to drive properly. As you start to move through the fundamentals, you're going to move through amber, and finally, once we've completed focus, you'll be green and ready to go and pass your driving test. At the start of your driving course, I will give you a driving journal, and this will include the sheets for the foundations initially, so that you understand what you're going to be learning and also some of the key questions that you're going to be asking yourself. When you're learning to drive with me, I will aim to try and get you to really think about what you're doing and how you're doing it, so that you're really reflecting on your performance and helping us both to assess where you're at. This should help you to develop a real sense of what you need to do next, and also a feeling of ownership and commitment to try and get things done right. So within the foundations area, what are some of the key things that we'll be learning? Well, right at the beginning, we'll be making sure that we're in a comfortable and safe position to be able to drive the car. Can you reach all the controls? Are your mirrors well adjusted? We'll then move on to getting the car moving on a flat, level road. This is often the first time that most people have had the opportunity to drive something, certainly on a public road, and can be quite exciting. It's amazing how quickly people grow in confidence once they realise that getting a car moving is not as difficult as maybe they fear, and there's quite an exhilaration to get the car running down a public road and quickly getting us up to speed. As part of this, we'll be starting to learn how to steer the car and, importantly, how to stop it. As we progress, and this will potentially all be in your first lesson, that will be covering some of these areas, not necessarily to their final conclusion, but certainly to get you introduced to them. Pulling into the left and changing gears, and how to control your speed. By the end of your first lesson, you're also probably going to have lots of questions, and there are going to be areas where you're not completely yet sure. Reviewing where we're at is going to help us to develop the plan for future lessons, which again within the foundation area is going to take us onto subjects such as dealing with hills and inclines, and making sure that we know what's going on around us and that others understand what our intentions are. Finally, before we move on to some of the fundamental areas, we need to make sure that we understand other controls within the car, not just those for getting the car moving, but also those that are going to make sure that we can continue to stay safe because we can see and be seen. So that gives you an idea as to what is involved in the foundations. Once these are in place, you should feel confident and happy with your control of the car, and much more ready to tackle sharing the road with other road users and looking at things such as junctions and roundabouts, which we'll find in the fundamentals section. By the time we move on to the fundamentals, you should feel pretty confident in most of the topics that we've covered under the foundations phase. This should give you the confidence to tackle issues such as dealing with junctions and roundabouts, which require you to multitask. Being confident that you can deal with the foundations without having to think about them too much is going to free up a lot of your thinking time to be able to observe what is going on around you and therefore make good decisions. So the first thing we're going to do when we look at the fundamentals is I want you to be able to decide how you're going to tackle hazards. So we're going to adopt a hazard routine. There are two main hazard routines, MSPSL or IPSGA. MSPSL stands for mirrors, signal, position, speed and look, whereas IPSGA stands for information, position, speed, gear, accelerate. Either can be used. Initially I will ask you to research both and make a decision as to which makes more sense to you. Once we've agreed on the hazard routine to be used, you're then going to start using it in all of these different areas here. So whenever you have a decision to make, are you going to slow down? What's behind you? Will you be changing gear? Are you going to speed up, etc, etc. We also want to make sure that we're maintaining a good road position. Do we understand what the hazard line means? This is a line down the middle of the road, but it's not simply to divide you from the other side of the other lane, but also can give you information if you know how to properly interpret it. We'll also be looking at all kinds of junctions, open and closed and tight ones, easy junctions. Obviously we'll start with those first, but we're going to work our way through so that you know how to deal with whatever comes your way. Roundabouts are a form of junction, but they have their own particular rules, so we'll be dealing with those separately, including making sure you have a good plan for as you approach roundabouts. Crossroads. Now these are a set of junctions which effectively give you the same ability to move around as a roundabout, but don't work in quite the same free-flowing way and can have their own pitfalls. So again, let's help you understand those. We're going to give you a nice easy method to use to deal with those, the 1, 2, 3 method. Also need to make sure that you are able to look after other road users as well, especially what we call vulnerable road users, such as cyclists, pedestrians, horse riders, etc. And very importantly, you need to be able to stop in an emergency. So we need to understand what an emergency stop is, when you should do it, how to do it and what the risks are involved. What is covered under the fundamentals is going to be the main meat and gravy of your test. This is where the examiner is going to get their best feel for how you drive, how you deal with all these things. So the fundamentals are extremely important. In most cases, by the time we've completed the fundamental section, we will also be performing mock tests. These will help you to demonstrate how well you've grasped what you've learned in the foundations and the fundamentals, and also start to give you a good idea of what to expect come test day. I will take on the role of the examiner using the examiner's language and also judge your driving in the same manner as the examiner might and help you understand what the test involves and also what is good and what is bad. Interspersed with your learning will be areas where we need to focus, and we will probably concentrate on these more towards the end of the fundamental stage, but we will introduce them when appropriate throughout the course to try and make sure that when we start to get to these stages you don't feel too overawed by them. So the focus is on those things that the test will pick up on. So low speed manoeuvres. Currently there are 4 manoeuvres that are tested in the driving test. They are all forms of parking. 2 are bay parking in a car park. 1 is parallel parking on the public road, and the final one is parking on the opposite side of the road. So we need to make sure that you understand when you're doing a low speed manoeuvre what the priorities are and how to manage any risks and to maintain safety. We'll also look at how to turn the car around in a confined space, what your options are for turning round. As I said, we'll look at parking the car. Finally, we also want to make sure that you can get around safely. So, helping you plan a journey, making sure that you can navigate around using signs or a sat-nav, and also some basic information about how you can make sure that your car continues to remain safe. If the opportunity arises, we can also start to get some experience on the motorways, as this is now allowed before you pass your test. But you will need to be up to test standard before we go on the motorway, as it is a potentially very dangerous environment if someone were to make a mistake at high speed. So I hope you found that useful. It gives you a good idea as to what to expect when you're learning to drive with me. And also, if you take the time to look at some of these sheets, you'll have a good understanding of most of the areas that you'll be learning in order to move from a complete beginner to somebody that's ready to take their place on the road with a full driving license. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please click like. If you want me to cover any more subjects in the future, please just contact me via my website or via my YouTube channel. Thank you.